How goes the family? Welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully you guys having a great and exceptional evening. Well, we are living in some interesting times. We're living in the times of more uncertainty than I ever thought we would be living in. For the last couple of years, I've talked about, make money moves or you're going to live real like a fool. Save as much money as possible, invest as much money as possible, invest in yourself as much as possible. And when I say invest, i.e. invest in, stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency, have individual retirement accounts depending on your age range, maybe look into having solo 401ks, annuities. But, it's like, inflation's high. I went to the grocery store today, and the last 2 years, inflation's been very high, i.e. 2023 and 2024. But in 2025, in the last month, I've noticed even the cheaper stuff went up at least $1 and some change. Whenever you think you're getting a good deal, a lot of times you're truly not. And by the way, R.I.P. to Angie Stone, was a great soulful sister. She was a soulful singer. A guy, she was only a year younger than my mother. It's like so many people have passed away lately. That's why I try to just, be positive out here in the street, in this world. And, positivity for a lot of people is not sexy. People, that's why drama, nonsense has become more and more popular. But I will say with sincerity that financially things are getting more scary out here, because the thing, and I remember when I used to have people on my on this YouTube channel, that's back when people had time to come on and have a discussion and dialogue. I remember talking about, how the world has changed. This is during the pandemic, when there was lockdowns. So before the pandemic, I remember a lot of buildings, and me and my friend Radu used to talk about this. How you used to see a lot of these commercial facilities say, lease space. And more commercial facilities are saying, lease this space, because a lot of companies either are moving away from a specific part of the country, or they're just downsizing the workforce in order for them to save money as a corporation, because of what the whole thing of a corporation in the United States of America and possibly all over the world is when it comes to profits, they got to do better than the last year. And how do you do that? You reduce your workforce, you increase the price of the product and services that you sell, slowly but surely. Great example, you'll see Hulu and Netflix, they always up their subscriptions, yearly. Probably the next 10 years, what we pay for Hulu and Netflix now will probably be paying 10 times the same amount of money we pay for Comcast, Cox Communications, any other cable provider, Verizon. You'll be paying $200 to $300 a month instead of paying, $30 a month or whatnot. Because there's a thing called inflation and increasing profit margins. And more working people are getting sucked up in this thing called life, because more and more working people are losing their jobs. And like I said, and it makes it easier once again to create a generation of renters and not homeowners, because if you were a six-figure earner, couldn't have possibly afford to buy a home in today's world, then how are you going to be a six-figure earner? I mean, a zero-figure earner, and try to buy a home. It's just not going to work. It's not going to compute. My hometown, the DMV area, Northern Virginia, Washington D.C., Maryland, is feeling the pinch right now, and it looks like it's going to be former team lead of mine. He said the main reason why he lived in the DMV area because it was recession-proof. Why? Because of the federal government presence and the corporations that get contracted to do work for that federal government. And now we are in a world where federal government workforce is being laid off. Therefore, the need for a lot of government contractors is being, their services will not be needed as well. So you have a reduction in the workforce, and therefore, and let me tell you something, contrary to popular belief, the DMV area, i.e. Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, that's all connected and whatnot, is one of the most expensive parts of the country to live in. It's just beneath New York City and Los Angeles and San Diego. We've had a lot of people move to the DMV area from that part of the country, but now in 2025, I can say living in the DMV area is just as it's like 5% less than 5 to 10% less when it comes to cost of living, less cheaper than New York City and Los Angeles, California. I just use those specific cities because those have always been the most expensive. Because when I was growing up, Washington, D.C. was not an expensive city to live in. And it's like I said, with these massive layoffs, and you're going to have more of a workforce that cannot afford to live in this area, in the DMV area. And with that being said, it's just like, okay. And then the thing is, I read that the goal is to sell off more government properties. The goal is to move a lot of agencies out of the Washington, D.C. area. So people's lives are being screwed over. And like I said, when it comes to the United States of America, from a financial standpoint, I think more and more everybody's going to have to live like people who just immigrated to the United States with not a lot of money. Meaning that they're going to have 2 or 3 families living up in one small spot for the sake of survival. And that's the deep thing. Like in 2025, I said this today, and I was like, it just feels like the world has gone to crap. Because people, look, if you have insecurity about having money, being able to pay the bills, that's not a good thing. Stock market's down, crypto's down. It's not a good time. It's like people are barely scraping by and getting by. And once again, I've stated that, hey, you have a credit card crisis where people are having to utilize credit cards in order to survive. Eventually, the bill's going to come too. Just like a lot of people have stopped paying the student loan debts, a lot of people are going to stop paying their credit card debts. And then now the DMV area has a possibility of basically starting to look like the places I've seen the homeless population the worst. Now I know New York is bad, but let me just utilize California as a great example, because when I went, specifically, Skid Row in Los Angeles, Skid Row in Los Angeles and the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland. Like, to see so many people living in their cars, living in tent cities, car cities, it's ridiculous. And a lot of the people that were living in these tents and cars actually have jobs. Not everybody's has a mental health issue or people on drugs and whatnot. Some of the people actually have a job and go to work, that they just can't afford to rent any place out. Can't even afford to rent a room. And it's been getting like that in the DMV for years now. But now, if you're going to cut and kill the workforce of people who were professionals, see, the state of Virginia and Maryland are going to feel this effect, because this is the biggest, federal spending. I used to say this all the time. The only good thing to come out of it, because I'm from the DMV area, so I can say this. The only good thing to come out of Washington, D.C. is government spending. And now that's being cut in one of the most expensive cities in the United States of America. So it's literally like cutting Wall Street jobs in New York City and cutting Hollywood jobs in Los Angeles. It doesn't compute. It's like cutting oil and medical jobs in Houston, Texas. If you go after the bread and butter of the economy of a city or a state, then that state will look like basically Detroit, Michigan back in the 80s and 90s, when all the auto plants left the state of Michigan. or left the city of Detroit. So therefore, the crime rate will go up, abandoned houses everywhere, and despair. And even though Detroit has had a quote unquote comeback lately, Detroit is still not a vibrant city. It's going undergoing gentrification or whatnot, but it's still not 100%. And that's just because basically a rich man became mayor, and basically him and his family had an open door to say, hey, we got to revitalize the city. And that's probably looks like what's going to happen in Washington, D.C. in the DMV area. And the main reason why I talk about this, I'm not getting political, I'm just talking about the economics, but I'm saying the main reason why I'm talking about this is that at the end of the day, people are living in their la-la land. People are living in a place where they just think that, hey, everything's just going to be all right. Don't worry about it. You're over-exaggerating. And, hey, I hope I am over-exaggerated because, if you don't have if you cut down the size of the force of people that are working at a specific, I even say not even just a government agency, but a corporation, and you cut down the need for the contracts that are associated with that corporation, because corporations have contracts as well. The contracts that are associated with those government agencies and those corporations. Case in point, if you don't case in point, a lot of landscaping contracts, cleaning contracts, i.e. janitorial contracts, and maintenance contracts, i.e. blue-collar workers, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, etc., and so forth, have lost a lot of work all over the nation with commercial facilities because corporate America does not have a need to have a workforce working from a office building in 2025 like they needed to have a office building filled up back in 1995. Because the world was different, technology is being utilized. A lot of people are working from home. Even though with the federal government, telework is dead, but in corporate America, telework is not dead because they're utilizing technology, and therefore, if they even still do have an office space, they just reduce the size of the office space. And if people ever do need to come in, they turn them into co-op spaces where people are sharing desks. You're here on this day, she's here on that day, blah, 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 blah. So the world is different. And like I said, when something like this comes at a time when you have your average rent for a two-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment is about $2,000 or more, depending. And if it's less than that, it's probably in one of the crappier apartment complexes around. Your average home price is $500,000, and anything less is probably going to be very small or possibly in a very bad neighborhood. So most people can't afford a $500,000 home. It is what it is. Most people cannot afford to pay specifically by themselves $2,000 a month for rent. And with that being said, a lot of parts, and it's not even just the Washington, D.C. area that's being affected. It's every area where there's a lot of corporations and government facilities and whatnot, they are being affected. People's livelihoods, people's life is being put on hold right now. Confidence is not out there like it should be. From government to the stock market to corporate America. Morale is low around the United States of America right now. And the future is probably looking more bleak now than it ever really has before. A lot of people. And when I say that, I'm talking about regular working people. The well-to-do, they're going to be fine. So, that's just what it is, unfortunately. So let's talk about the corporate side. So 2025 layoff list of companies cutting jobs. This is as of February 24th, so this was last week. Giant companies such as Chevron, JP Morgan Chase, and Meta, which is i.e. Facebook, have announced layoffs in 2025. Tens of thousands of jobs were cut last month. Though we are less than 2 months into 2025, many companies have already announced layoffs this year. And I remember me and my friends talking about this during the pandemic, said this is where the United States is heading, regardless who's in the White House, Governor's House, and Mayor's House. It just depends on who's ever sitting in those houses. Will they make it harder, or will they make it easier for people to transition into another aspect of their life? It just depends. Headcount reductions in early 2025 are taking place at companies in broad range of sectors, impacting thousands of employees. And it's crazy. So here's a list of more of the companies that have laid people off: Starbucks, Blue Origin, Estee Lauder, Kohl's, Southwest Airlines, and I just flew Southwest to Houston, Texas, Workday, and even CNN. Tens of thousands of jobs cut, nearly 50, basically up to 50,000 jobs received the axe from U.S. companies in January of 2025, according to February 6th report from Challenger, Gray, and Christmas. The outplacement firm said that marked the lowest January job cut total in 3 years. At the same time, it represented a 20% jump from December. January relatively, and this is right after holidays, not hospital, right after the holidays when this took place. January was relatively quiet in terms of job cut announcements. However, we've already seen major announcements in the early days of February. So it seems it's quite unlikely to last. And obviously, it's not just the private sector, as I was talking about. I'm about to get into the federal layoffs. So you have a massive amount of layoffs that are taking place in corporate America. Okay, and the thing is, it's going to be more to come. Because one thing that I foresee by the end of 2025, and I really do hope that I'm wrong, but all these layoffs in the private sector and the public sector, you will see more for lease signs on commercial facilities, and you're going to see more for sale signs on houses. Now, a buddy of mine was talking about, before I even get into the agencies that have been cut from the federal perspective, you're going to see, a buddy of mine was thinking in the DMV area, well, is this going to create a housing crisis? I said to him, no, I don't see it being like 2007, 2008 standpoint, unless the cutting gets unless the amount of jobs that are lost equate to the amount of jobs that were lost in 2007 and 2008. Because most of the people the reason why we had such a bad housing crisis in 2007 and 8 wasn't just because you had mass layoffs in corporate America and throughout other areas, but it was because of the subprime loans, where people's loans spiked from affordable to double. So if your mortgage goes from one price to double the next day or next month or next year, most people can't afford it, and foreclosures were through the roof because of that. Between that and people losing their jobs, it was just unbearable. It was unbearable. And I foresee that happening if the same amount of jobs are lost. Because hey, if you can't afford to pay your bills, you can't afford to pay your bills. And the sad thing is, even in corporate and public sector, people have lost their jobs, and they haven't done anything wrong. That's what makes this time sad. But here are the agencies that are being affected by the federal jobs cuts: Veteran Affairs, Department of Education, Department of Energy, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, IRS, National Park Service, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Architecture, the Department of Agriculture, the Justice Department, Inspector Generals, and State Departments. So, and it's saddened at the Department of Veteran Affairs, because that's supposed to be the agency that helps our veterans who fought for our nation at the same time. And Homeland Security, well, that's dealing with the security of the homeland. I'm just talking about the ones that I deem to be the most important. I'm not saying these other agencies aren't. Justice Department, well, that's supposed to be the department that fights for federal government cases, and then the State Department that helps us get things done abroad. So yeah, it's a sad, crazy time that we're living in now. Because then the thing is, like I said, if people can't afford to pay their bills, then that means people can't afford to shop. And if they can't afford to shop, then they basically get placed out of the market altogether. And then the local governments that are in these areas, they lose sales taxes and personal property taxes because people can't afford to buy stuff. That means people will be going to food banks more. These are just things that I'm just, because, remember, We live in a consumer-based economy. So if people can't pay bills, that's strike one. So water departments, insurance companies, whether car insurance, home insurance, personal property taxes, can't be paid on the cars, on the houses. The banks lose money because people have to default on their loans. Banks hate foreclosures because that means they're losing their money. Same thing with car dealerships. They'll get affected even more so. I mean, if you just really break down the U.S. economy when people don't have jobs, so that means people aren't selling cars like that. Therefore, more people from all these entities that I've just named, and then if people can't afford to stay in their home, that means they won't be able to afford they won't have to call maintenance companies because that means plumbers, carpenters, things of that nature, electricians will lose money because they won't have customers, or as many customers as they do have. So therefore, as a company, they might have to lay people off because they're not given the opportunity to increase their profits. Okay. Then if people can't even afford to have a car, that means gas stations lose money. Car shops where they work on vehicles, to people who pump gas and things of that nature. And once again, then insurance companies lose money. And then if people can't afford to go shopping like that, then the state and the local government loses money in regards to not being able to collect sales taxes, especially in more conservative states where they don't have income state taxes, or they don't have high income state taxes, or as many taxes as you would see in New York and California. So the economy really depends very hard on sales taxes, people buying stuff. So it all comes to, and then of course, the hospitals lose money because then people will go to the doctors less, the dentist less. Insurance companies lose money because people won't be able to pay their monthly premiums. It's all an effect. It's like Jenga, the board game Jenga. You move one piece and it all falls down. The whole block, the whole level of Jenga box pieces falls down. And that's where we're at now. And then, I mean, it's like I said, the last 2 months, I think I've paid going out to restaurants. I've paid a lot of money over, too much. So to just eat out nowadays is egregious in itself. Okay. To eat out, to have a drink, to go to a bar is egregious in itself. So if you take a date out nowadays, to a decent spot, you're going to pay $100 and some change. You might save money if you don't drink any alcohol. I'll say that much. But if you take a woman out to a decent restaurant, you're going to pay $100 and some change in today's world. So then the restaurants lose money. And if the restaurants lose money, then they'll have to lay people off because they won't have a need to have a big staff or staff at all. That's why I said it's like these things, it's interesting to say the least. Now, I hope this, like I said, has this happened yet? No. But I hope this doesn't happen. I'll say that much. I really do hope that this doesn't happen because, it's already. And see, that's what I said. For this to happen, all this stuff happened now in the private sector, in the public sector. It's very bad because, like I said, the last 2 to 3 years now, inflation has been very bad. The cost of goods and services has gone up tremendously. So confidence from a consumer standpoint, is not there. So therefore, confidence, and then there's no confidence in the stock market right now. Even you've heard stories from certain other millionaires and billionaires talking about, hey, they don't like to work. They don't like to operate in an environment where there's no confidence that things are going to work itself out. They look at it as a shady investment. So is there light at the end of this tunnel called 2025? I don't know. I'm predicting 2025 to be one of the worst years in American history. Just because if my predictions are correct, I could be wrong. In this case, I really do hope I am wrong. But if people can't afford to pay their bills to live, or people are going to scrape by even more to live, then they're going to think twice in regards to going out and having fun. i.e. spending money. Christmas in 2025 will not be good. Let's just put it like that. Birthdays, because I already, it's like, because me and my friends, we were having this discussion yesterday, and was talking about, where the United States the whole country could start to look like California. And look, I'm a big fan of California, one of my favorite states. I'm wearing a Boys in the Hood t-shirt right now, so I'm a big California fan, Los Angeles fan all day. I'm gonna be going to LA at the end of this month. So, but there will be no middle class if this continues. We will have third world characteristics, meaning either you rich or you're poor. You can't have a middle class if you don't have a thriving job market. I really can't put it any other way. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or an economist to understand these simple principles. You cannot have it. I don't care who's in the White House, governor's house, or mayor's house. You can't have a thriving middle class if you don't have a thriving job market. It's not sustainable. It doesn't make sense. And a middle class means a thriving job market. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. That's it. There's no system can that ever work in. Not in capitalism, not in communism, not in socialism. Somebody has to be able to work for somebody else. Because somebody has to be the customer to somebody's business in order for that business to thrive. That's why I said it's like, and confidence is very low right now. Very, very low. And that's why I named this rant Financial Purge 2025. Because if you remember the movie The Purge, and I can't believe this so long ago, it was in 2013, great freaking movie. I'm not even a big fan of most movies that have come out in Hollywood, but man, I tell you, the Purge movies, my movies. But let's just put this into perspective, family. It's one day out of the year where in the movie The Purge, where crime was legal. All crime legal all over the United States of America for 24 hours. So people had to lock down. If you were and it was the funny thing is, during that time of the Purge, there really wasn't a middle class. Either you were well-to-do or you were poor. And if you were well-to-do, you were protected because during the Purge, the police didn't do anything. The police basically didn't exist. Everybody could kill, hunt, do whatever they want. So if you were well-to-do, you were in a fortress locked down with armed private security guards. But if you were poor, you had to fend for yourself, and hopefully that people didn't find you. The killers, because the killers had an open pass, the criminals had an open pass that night. And people just had to band for themselves. So that is, and that movie shows that, hey, if you're well-to-do, you're going to be taken care of. If you're not, you're kind of screwed. And the Medicaid and Medicare is being cut, so therefore, and remember that a lot of hospitals and family doctors' offices make money off of Medicaid and Medicare. So always remember that with housing, and the housing is being cut as well. That's money that the government's flooding the economy with, and that money goes to small and big businesses. So therefore, small and big businesses will once again get affected by those cuts, and therefore those businesses will either go out of business or they will have to shrink their workforce in order for them to stay in business and remain competitive. It's deep. And I'm not an economist. I'm not giving out financial advice. I just know when a business is successful, it needs more people, it needs more resources. When a business is cut off, because by cutting those services, you're cutting out their customers, a lot of their customers. Whether you love it or not, the Affordable Care Act was a thing that worked and it's a thing that corporate America loved, because like, hey, you've opened up the box to make it easier for us to insure people. So therefore, we're collecting more monthly premiums. Okay. And therefore we have more customers. And therefore, when they have a bill, they have to pay us. And therefore we are able to create more jobs for the local communities and whatnot, because we need a bigger staff of nurses, other health professionals, and people to help all other sources, from janitors to maintenance people, to keep that to security personnel, to keep those hospitals functioning, keep those mom and pop medical offices functioning. That's why I say I don't do Democrats and Republicans. I do checkings and savings. That's why I was always like, look, if you just talk about money, I think most people can agree on things. If you talk about the business and investments, most people who are literate when it comes to these things, doesn't take a college degree or high school diploma to understand the one-on-one aspects of these things. Because I always say, if I can get it, anybody else can understand it. But that's just me personally. But we're living in a time now where everybody wants to just be so divided on every other issue that has nothing to do with increasing their value, increasing their income, and increasing their assets. So the financial purge, to me, is happening because of unemployment. And who knows, unemployment benefits might get cut. Layoffs and uncertainty and fear. That's where we're at in 2025. Like to be in the third month of 2025, because as I'm live on this, it's March 1st, 2025. I'm very not confident and optimistic about 2025. This is probably one of the most pessimistic years thus far that I've seen in my life. And I got to keep it real when I say that. One of the most pessimistic years thus far, and we'll see what happens. If things get better, I hope it does, because I want everybody to thrive in this life. But can you thrive in this life when there's so much uncertainty? That is the question, family. So let me know in the comment sections what you think. Do you think we're going to thrive in 2025? What do you think? Do you think the times that we're living in are bad, going to get worse? What's your opinion? Because I really foresee things getting worse before they get better. And then that's another thing, how it will affect the banking industry is that, then people won't be able to qualify for loans. And banks thrive off of two things. Well, three things specifically. People making deposits, number one. Number two, they invest that money into the various markets and whatnot. And then number three, issuing out loans so that they can get that money back with interest. Therefore, that's how they increase their profit margins. But if people can't afford to get loans and people aren't making deposits like that, then that messes with the bottom line of a financial institution known as, i.e. Wells Fargo, Citibank, Chevy Chase Bank, Bank of America, and then the local credit unions get affected as well, especially if it's in communities where the population will decrease, then those banks will cease to exist because of the lack of customers. I could really keep going on and on with this, because that's how serious the times that we're living in right now. It's deep. It's deep. But we shall see what happens. Some interesting times we're living in. But the financial purge has started. And if you remember, the Purge movie, it wasn't always a good ending, It really wasn't. There was lessons learned, but the ending was not the best. And the wrong people got hurt. And the right ones thrived. The right ones thrived. So that's all I have right for now, family. That's all I have for now. But yeah, this is the beginning of the financial purge. I have a feeling in the middle of this year I'll be doing another video called the 2025 Financial Purge 2, and we'll see what the effects of these mass layoffs from the public and the private sector, how it's affected the U.S. economy. Because I don't care who's in the White House, governor's house, and mayor's house. I'll tell you one thing: if people can't afford to pay for anything, your country will go to crap. We are a consumer spending-based society, and all the sales in the world don't mean jack. You know what? If people can't even afford to pay a light bill, water bill, if they can't even afford to pay for a bill, most Americans can't even afford a $300 to $500 bill right now. Emergency. All right. On that note, family, do the great three things. Like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. As I always say, right now, try to make money moves or you're going to end up living broke like a fool. That's why I've always been big on people having as much savings and access to capital and money invested into specific different investment vehicles. Because if you lose your job, can you afford to at least live for the next 5 to 6 months? Because it usually takes that long to find a decent job. Do you have a side hustle? Are you connected with friends and family that are about doing business and investments? That's what I said. Screw your football parties, screw your fight parties. You need to start having some economic parties. But either way, on that note, I'm out. Take care. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully you're having a great day. If you've been watching Larry's Anything Goes programming, you know that we are not only providing great financial intelligence content as much as possible by interviewing other financial professionals, professionals in the travel industry, real estate industry, etc., and so forth, but we provide various services when it comes to specific products that we sell, from anything that you would actually find on Amazon or actually at Walmart, etc., and so forth. And we are actually providing specific products due to today's current crisis and whatnot, to ensure that we provide the right services and products that you need at a reasonable price when it comes to medical face masks, when it comes to hand sanitizer, and when it comes to latex gloves and things of that nature, and etc., and so forth, toilet paper, paper towels. But we have what you need. Also, family, don't forget that Larry's Anything Goes is a part of an affiliate marketing network known as Gold Standard Partners, where you have the opportunity to buy cryptocurrency and allow others to invest with you as becoming an affiliate marketing partner. And obviously, if they purchase a package with the program, you're able to make money off their package purchases and make money off of their crypto purchases and things of that nature. If you want to join, please follow the links in the description, and I'll give you a call as soon as you sign up and purchase a package, and we'll go from there. But definitely, it's all about the best way to make money moves is to have currency with one another, and to ensure that currency is always being spoken of on all levels, so it benefits everyone and not just one specific person. That's a lot of things that people forget about. So think about joining the program, and we'll be able to go from there. But if not, either way, it's always appreciated. And thank you for watching, and hopefully you guys have a great day and continuously make money moves so you don't live broke like a fool. Take care. As you can see, with our various products, we have our financial apparel, as you see, wearing There's Anything Goes t-shirt, financial intelligence is sexy, face masks, latex gloves, things of that nature, to obviously ensure the safety of you and your family all at the same time. We want to ensure that you get the best products and see the actual products that we're actually providing for you, and giving you another view of not only the shirts and the medical masks, but actually another view of actual latex gloves and the actual hand sanitizer. Because one thing we've learned throughout this unfortunate crisis is that we have to take more precautionary measures to ensure not only the safety for ourselves, but for our families. And having a great pair of hand sanitizers, latex gloves, and medical face masks will ensure that safety. And with all that being said, hopefully you guys will check out our online store. We have the various products that you see here. With a couple of clicks, especially if you're paying via PayPal, it makes life that much easier for you to purchase our various products, especially during this unfortunate situation. You see the apparel from Larry's Anything Goes. We have the medical products when it comes to hand sanitizer, latex gloves, medical face masks, things of that nature, and various other products. So please check out Larry's Anything Goes. Support small local businesses. We greatly appreciate it, and hopefully that you have a good day.
Michael, now.